kind of widely documented that we are more obese than we've ever been.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
It is a big problem for surgeons because when you're obese, it's harder. And I'm not a surgeon by any means or a doctor, but we know that it creates all kinds of complications for the surgeons and staff. Your healing is compromised. Everything is more challenging when you're morbidly obese.
Right.
We have a high patient population of folks who, for example, want to come in and get a total knee done because they have a bad knee. Well, orthopedic surgeons won't do your knee if you're morbidly obese or you're over a certain BMI. So then it just kind of spirals out of control. Now you have a patient who has a bad knee, they're morbidly obese, that can't get a knee replaced because the surgeons won't do it because they're too high risk, and now they're immobile. They can't move. So now they just get bigger and bigger.
Good morning, everyone. This is Mark McCain, and I'm solo today. Jared is unfortunately under the weather. We're listening to Triumph Every Day, where we talk about the journeys that shape the lives of our guests and how it brought them to where they are today. And we do have a special guest, as always, Mr. Mike Lee, member of the gym. And welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
And man, we'll just start with, for all the people that might not know you here at the gym or that's listening, just a little more about yourself, and I know you're from the area originally, and tell us a little more.
Yeah, so I grew up in Independence, right down the road. I went to Simon Kenton High School and graduated from there, and went to Miami University, and moved away for a little bit. Moved to Atlanta area, Northern Georgia area for some work, and then I moved away from there to Michigan, and then after a few years of being in Michigan, I met my wife, my now wife, from Michigan. She's from Michigan. And we moved back to the Cincinnati area and got married and had our first kid, and decided we want to be closer to my family because we need a little bit more support. And so we ended up building a house down in Union about 8 years ago. We've been here ever since.
Very cool. So you kind of bounced around a little bit after, obviously being here most of your life, going to school at Miami, Ohio, which is, what is that, about an hour?
Yeah. A little over an hour from here.
Yeah, so not too far away. What was taking you to the different areas of the country? Was it just work? Or?
Just work.
Yeah.
I mean, I basically started working right after graduation, and when I lived in Atlanta, which is a brief few months for training. Mm-hmm. And then I'm in sales, so I got put in a territory in Metro Detroit. I remember when I got my first job, the company said, all right, pick 7 states that you'd be willing to live in, and I just kind of went Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana. I kind of went around. And the 7th state I picked was Michigan.
Of course, that'd be the last state.
Who wants to live in Detroit? But so within a few weeks of being there, that's where they decided they were going to put me and my twin brother, both worked for the same company out of college. And but I love my time in Michigan, and of course that's where I met my wife. So it's kind of my second home.
Yeah, I mean, at least you got one good thing out of it, right?
That's right.
So maybe tell that story a little bit. How did you meet your wife? How did that whole thing unfold? And did you walk in and sweep her off her feet kind of thing? Or?
Not really, but it's kind of an interesting story, I guess. We work for the same company, so I worked for this company for about a year before she graduated. She's a couple years younger than me, and she graduated from college and got on with the same company as a sales rep as well. And I had heard she was real cute and all the stuff, and some of my counterparts had told me about her, and we were actually doing a sales meeting for customers in her college hometown of Mount Pleasant, Michigan. She went to Central Michigan, and the first time I saw her was on a golf course. I was working like a golf hole for a golf outing we were doing for customers, and I saw her, and she stepped up to the tee and just striped one right down the middle of the fairway, and she was adorable. And I said, "I'm going to marry that girl." That's the first thing I said. And I didn't see her for months because she had to go away for training. Didn't know if she was ever going to, even work in Michigan. But sure enough, as fate would have it, she came to Michigan, was working kind of alongside me, and we started dating right away. And then she left the company, strangely enough, and then got a position in Cincinnati. so she became a pharmaceutical rep. And so she was working in my hometown, and I was and living in Cincinnati, and I was still stuck in Michigan in her hometown. So we did like the long distance thing for a little bit.
Right.
But yeah. So yeah.
That's an awesome story, man. That's really cool. I love
come
that.
Come to find out, she wasn't that good of a golfer.
Oh,
That was
really?
literally the first time she ever played.
Lucky.
But she just striped one the first time she ever
And
played.
I think that's what we're all curious about. Like, all right, how good is her golf game? You know, can I get some lessons? Yeah. Well, very cool. Yeah, and I know we're kind of moving relatively quick through some stuff. Growing up in the area, going to Simon Kenton, I know you were big time into wrestling. So we can talk about that. We can also talk about, recently. Well, I guess not super recently. Matt, your twin brother, started at the gym. I know you kind of got him involved here. I know you guys are real close.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, what was it like? Being an athlete in high school, and even into college, and then now, working out at the gym.
Sure. Yeah. So, growing up, having a twin brother and having older brothers, I have brothers that are
that's right.
7 and 8 years older than me, and they were always into sports, playing football, baseball, and they got into wrestling in high school. And at the time, our high school had a really, really good, solid team. They ended up winning the team state championship.
Oh, wow.
My one older brother was a senior, and the other brother was a junior in high school. But so they've always kind of got us into sports. I mean, we started playing baseball and soccer. It was my first sport I actually ever played for one season, and then we immediately transitioned into football and started wrestling in third grade, which around here there really wasn't a lot of youth wrestling. There actually wasn't any youth wrestling at the time. It was really just high school varsity and junior varsity wrestling. But because we had older brothers on the team, we kind of worked it out with the coach and we were twins, so we always had someone that we could wrestle with and practice moves on and things. So our coaches were great and allowed me and my brother to practice with the high school team, basically as third graders. And we were probably the youngest wrestlers in the state of Kentucky at the time, because there just wasn't a lot of youth wrestling around here. But yeah, we fell in love with the sport. We were always, playing football, and then we kind of honed in on just wrestling after my 8th grade year. Both my brother and I had a really successful high school varsity season our 8th grade year. I placed second in state as an 8th grader, and he took third.
Wow.
And so we kind of knew then that was going to be the sport that we were going to kind of focus in on. So we gave up football, which I kind of regret now because I love football and baseball, but we really just focused in on wrestling. And fortunately, we had pretty successful high school careers. We both ended up winning state championships and went on to wrestle in college, which was...
Yeah. That's a big deal, man. That's really cool. Not a lot of people can say that, state champion. So I think you made the right decision. You know, it ended up obviously you getting college scholarships. Then you went to Miami. Mm-hmm. And what was that like as far as maybe the coaching? Was it different? The weight training, was it different? Obviously, you're having probably more intense studies. And you got this little taste of freedom, being a little bit away from home. Yeah,
I mean, wrestling in college was so much different than high school. I mean, in high school, I think I had a winning percentage well over 90% of my matches. Mm-hmm. So and then you go to college, and everyone you wrestle is a state champ. So it's not like, and I'm from Kentucky, so Kentucky isn't one of the most elite high school wrestling hotbeds anyway. So it's probably middle of the pack nationally. So you go wrestle kids from New Jersey and Ohio and Pennsylvania and California and these really, really hotbed wrestling states, and it's a different level. Mm-hmm. And I mean, my experience in Miami was kind of mixed. I mean, I had somewhat success wrestling there, and I did get a scholarship, but unfortunately the program was under a lot of heat from Title IX while we were there, and they ended up dropping the program going into my senior year.
Oh wow.
Which, to be honest with you, I was pretty burned out with the sport at the time. I got to keep my scholarships. It was kind of nice not having to worry about it. But it was just wrestling in college is a grind. It is in high school too, but in college it's so much different because you're traveling more and of course the studies are harder. Fly by high school and breeze through high school academically, but in college it's a little different.
Yeah, Miami is a very well known, and at least in this area. For their academics, so I'm sure it was intense studies. So so they dropped the program. So you got to kind of just hang back and not hang back necessarily, but just really focus on your studies and get ready for the next step. And like you said, that took you to traveling for work and whatnot.
Yeah. So I was double majoring. I was a business major, and what I ended up doing was just graduating early instead of sticking around for a whole full year. I just graduated in the fall and started working right away.
Yeah.
So just to get out of there. And so I had one semester where I was just a regular student and didn't have to be a part of a team. So, and actually it was probably the most fun I had in college because I had so much time on my hands. It was kind of odd, but yeah, I don't regret it. If I could do it all over again as far as college, I really love graduating from Miami, and I had great experiences there. But I think I may have, if I could do it all over again, I may have wrestled in a smaller division.
Sure.
I was good enough to compete at D1, but that's the highest level of wrestling.
Right.
It'd been I would have had a lot more fun and certainly more success had I wrestled at a D2 school or maybe a smaller school that not everyone you wrestle is a 2 or 3 time state champion and stuff. So, but
I was so I've made it known on here before. I've played some sports and whatnot, but played some baseball, and I actually got a scholarship to go to a Division II school where I was from. I didn't have a lot of big Division I schools where I grew up, and it's a very small hometown. So kind of a little bit of retrospect and contrast to what you were experiencing. So I go to this school. It's about 30 minutes away from where I grew up. Literally could go home and still have my mom do my laundry on the weekends and stuff like that, which she actually insisted on. So it's a little light into my life. But fastly realized that I was making some bad decisions there from not focusing on academics. And baseball is a pretty passive sport. It's not nowhere near as intense as wrestling. So you can avoid the conditioning and you don't have to take as good a care of your body. Even though I've still always have been passionate about fitness, so I was. But the culture there was just not what I was kind of used to. I didn't feel like we were striving to become better consistently. And then I'm making poor decisions, just drinking and partying a little bit too much, and seeing the grades suffer. Little did I know, I made a big decision to move to Cincinnati the next year, and it was the big city to me. This was a huge jump. So, and then I go and I meet with a recruiter for their baseball team. He invites me to come to a game. I watch a game. I think their pitcher at the time was getting scouted. He was throwing in the mid-90s. They had a shortstop by the name of Josh Harrison, who's a 4-time MLB All-Star now. And I told him I played shortstop and I could be a pitcher, and that was my 2 things. And did a little tryout for the team, and they didn't have any scholarships available. All their scholarships were going to football and to basketball, stuff like that. But anyway, I always thought I was destined to play Division I, and it was clear. I was like, okay, well, you probably should have just stayed where you were at if you wanted to pursue baseball and just probably eliminate your circle of friends, but I didn't. I couldn't see that happening. The only way I could see out of that was moving. So anyway, just to contrast that, I can definitely get on board with looking at different schooling options. For me, whenever I made the switch, it actually allowed me to end my athletic pursuits and then begin my really academic pursuits, because I was able to still graduate within the 3 years that whenever I transferred. So it ended up working out. I got to eliminate some of the bad influences, and that really helps. And I think that's a lot of people in life, even as you're, seeing your kids grow up now and stuff like that. I'm sure you want that for them, is to like hang around people that are doing the right things, and sometimes they have to figure that out for themselves.
Yeah, it was, for us in Miami, it was very different from a wrestling perspective. How in high school, we actually, I felt like all of us as a team took the sport a lot more seriously, because we didn't have as many distractions. When we got to Miami, obviously there's a lot of distractions in college, and then in general, we had that kind of overarching black cloud over the program, whether or not we were going to have a program the next year because of time. Because it went away my senior year, but we were struggling with it for a couple years. We didn't know if we were going to have a program, and there was turnover with coaches, and so it was weird to be a part of a team that just had that kind of hanging over its head, and then the effect it had on everyone. And I just remember we'd go out and party in the middle of the week, and we had wrestling. And we just I never did that in high school. Wouldn't even consider it, but it is what it is, and I we did have a good time there, and I learned a lot, and it was fun wrestling at the D1 level, and we had some success there. So
I think it's great. I think college it teaches you a lot about yourself and decisions and like I said, I remember a pivotal moment in that process for me when I really was like, I need to leave. There was me and one other kid out of the whole baseball team were the only kids that actually trained like on our weightlifting and fitness whenever it wasn't mandatory. And I remember one day we're doing running, and we only had 2 coaches, really full-time coaches, and they had a bunch of graduate assistants, stuff like that. And the coaches weren't there, and everyone's slacking off. And me and another kid, was a freshman, we were like, no, we want to get better, so let's run these drills. And we're running them, and everyone starts like, oh, you guys trying the brown nose? And just the culture was just very poor. The coach that was there was kind of on his last leg. He actually played in the majors, was very well respected, but apparently he was real close to a certain number of wins. I don't know if it was like, I honestly forget. I don't know if it was like 300, 400, 500, whatever it was, but it was well known that he was just sticking around to get some record, of wins, and he wanted out, so he kind of checked out. So anyway, maybe just a kind of a current events almost type of question. Obviously, being a dad. Yep. How many kids you got, Mike?
I have 3 kids.
3 kids.
2 daughters, and I have a 2-year-old son. So I have Abby, who's 9, and I have Evelyn, who's 6.
Okay.
And Harrison, who's 2 now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's we can dive into that. I'm curious. Again, we don't have to go super deep down this rabbit hole, but has your opinion on college changed at all since obviously all the student debt and all these things that have kind of been brought to light in our system, to where I think by and large it's probably still a good decision for a lot of people to go to school, but to do it in a manner to where you're not going to be crippled by debt.
Yeah, I actually just had a meeting with a counterpart of mine whose daughter is a senior in high school, and she's very smart, 32 on her ACT.
Wow.
And
is that a perfect?
I think it's close.
Yeah, it's close.
Yeah, she had to get a 32 to get a full scholarship to UK. So she just got it, and we just had this long conversation around it. But I think nowadays education just costs so much, and I think there's more. The way I view it now is I really want to make sure my kids are doing exceptionally well in high school, so they can afford to go to college. Because right. Of course, we're going to help pay, but it's just getting so expensive. You have to look more probably at state schools and things, maybe than you ever did before, because private schooling is getting it's just ridiculously expensive. I work in medical devices, and I was talking to a doctor yesterday about his son, who's a senior in high school at Cuff Cath, and he's looking at the same things. Here's a surgeon making plenty of money, I'm sure, but he is concerned about the cost of undergrad and then of course medical school if he chooses to do that. So I think I guess if I have a kind of difference in opinion, I'd probably when I was in high school, I just felt like, well, I was going to be an athlete, and I was going to get most of my schooling paid from athletics, but you can't guarantee that, and also you really got to focus on your academics to make sure that you could hopefully get most of it paid for, because it's just incredibly expensive.
It really is. And just my 2 cents, and again, I've shared this before on a recent podcast. Like I was one of those people that took out loans, and I'm still paying them back, and we'll be paying them back for a very long time. And definitely feel as though I was deceived, through the whole process, because again, neither of my parents went to college. They didn't understand what was really going on, and now we're still paying for that. Obviously, it'll be 20, 30 years, after I've graduated, and again, I got through in a timely manner. It wasn't like I went to school for a ton of years, like a little over 4 years in college after transferring. But yeah, I think, just my 2 cents is I just want to make sure that, if I'm fortunate enough to have kids one day and they decide to go to college, that they understand wholeheartedly whether, it's whatever position we're in, whether to help them out or they're in a scholarship. My wife was always a really good student. She got a full ride, to just academics. And sometimes I have to help her understand, just because she's so smart, in that sense of, like, not everyone's that lucky, so whenever obviously we got married and we do our joint bank account and she sees the student loan, she's like, well, why'd you have to do that? I'm like, because I'm not a straight A student. I wasn't a straight A student or had that scholarship. So anyway, man, I think that's just a really obviously important thing, whenever that's going on right now in our culture. When we look at just society in general, it's just like, I don't understand it completely, why we're crippling kids. You're talking about a surgeon that's talking about money problems about, like, that's clearly, he's clearly in probably the top 5%, top 1% of an earner in our country, and this guy still has to worry about his child going on to pursue maybe a passion of theirs. And anyway, it's I digress, but I know you're in that field as well. So how did I know you said you went for business, you got into sales and medical. You said you're selling medical supplies.
Yeah, so I work for a medical device division of Johnson & Johnson called Ethicon, and it's mainly products that are used during surgery and used in the operating rooms and sometimes in the ERs. But I've been doing it for a while now, and it's the nice thing about my job that I like is that I there's a lot of different medical device positions out there, and but my particular portfolio of products kind of is very broad, and it's pretty much used in almost any type of surgery. So I can go into pretty much every specialty inside the operating room, and they're using something of mine. So from that standpoint, it's really exciting because I can go. I've been in open heart procedures, I've been in transplant procedures, and orthopedic procedures, general surgery. I mean, pretty much anything that goes on in a hospital operating room, I've been in and been a part of. And
that's cool.
Yeah, I kind of take it for granted. I was thinking about when I was doing this. I'm like thinking about my job. I mean, I think a lot of people that I talk to who've never seen a surgery in person, I think I kind of take it for granted how kind of cool it is, and how exciting it is to be a part of that in any capacity, even if I'm just kind of sitting in the back of the room, kind of making sure my product's being used correctly, which is mainly what I do when I'm there. It's just amazing to see what these people do and how they're healing people, and not just the surgeon, but the nurses and the assistants, and the techs, and the whole surgical team, and what they do is really amazing.
It's a well kind of oiled machine, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about like schooling, I admire those people in a lot of ways. We have several professionals in that field that come here, and I get to interact with them and just learn about. I'm like, man, just an hour ago you were watching someone get their shoulder repaired, or whatever the case may be, like I said, heart surgery or this cancer surgery. And I think that's just crazy that they can go into that mode and just be fine with it. And I know you're a person that you've viewed these, and you've said you had to bring in some new hires before, and it's like seeing someone cut open on an operating table is like, oh, okay, I know that this person could handle it because they didn't really flinch. I know me, I would be flinching. I'd be probably leaving the room. But was that always just something from the initial, like, first day you walk in and someone's there getting a heart surgery or whatever it was? Was it just kind of like, okay, this doesn't bother me, or was it something?
It definitely takes a little getting used to.
Yeah.
Probably the first time I actually really felt woozy from seeing something was an open heart procedure during my training. So I was in Orlando and doing some training, and I think they kind of set me up. They were kind of testing me out. The rep who was training me down there knew the heart surgeon really well, and so they brought me into the room, and I was kind of standing. Of course, we got to stay away from the sterile field, so we're kind of staying away from the patient. But I was standing up by the patient's head by the anesthesiologist, and they had me on this little platform, and I didn't even really know what to expect. And when I got up there, I stepped up there, and they just pulled this dressing off, and it was an an open heart procedure. You know,
Wow.
they had done the sternotomy, they'd already retracted back the sternum, and the heart's just sitting there beating. And that was the first time I felt a little woozy, like my toes were getting numb, which is a scary feeling because if you pass out and you fall into the sterile field, that's a real problem. So, but after that, I mean, there's really nothing. I mean, there's some smells and things that take a little bit to get used to. But other than that, it's you know, once you've seen it a bunch of times, you get okay with it. There are really exciting moments, and a lot of times you're just, you know, some of these procedures are 4 or 5 hours long. You're just kind of standing there looking on your phone and you know, not doing a whole lot. But I actually, a few weeks ago when we had the shooting down in downtown Cincinnati, I was actually at UC, and they're the only level 1 trauma center in the area. So I was working in the OR when the shooting happened, and you know, I'm getting text messages from people on my phone. I'm looking at Twitter, and then they did a code orange, I believe is what it is, where there's a massive shooting or some sort of traumatic occurrence in the area. So they shut down the entire OR and kind of got ready. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know there were going to be 12 people coming in or 15 people that were going to need surgery. So being there for that was probably one of the more exciting things. And just seeing that team of people kind of snap into action. It was, and of course, I'm just there kind of observing cases and making sure my products are being used right, but just helping out in any way you can. And fortunately, there were only a couple people that needed surgery, and they came through. But it was
one lady, I forget her name, it's escaping me. You probably may know it. Got shot like 12 times.
Yeah,
that's an incredible story of survival and just obviously misfortune to be there, but to stick to it in the midst of being able to overcome that, it's crazy. But so you're a guy you're in that medical hospital pretty regularly. Is that like a 3, 4, 5 days a week you're in the hospital?
So my job is kind of mixed between working with the business side of the administration side, supply chain people who are making the decisions on bringing in products and contracting and pricing, kind of the boring business side of it. And then also the clinical side. So it's kind of 50-50. I probably spend 3.5 days a week probably going into cases, and then the other half of the time, you know, or maybe a little less than that, working with the supply chain purchasing people. So it's a little bit of mix, which is nice for me. I don't like to just stand in cases all day long and watch other people do surgery, especially if they really know my products already. I'm like, why am I even here? But so I get to kind of bounce around and find opportunities and initiatives and different things. So.
That sounds cool, man.
Yeah.
I got to ask, just being around that so often, do you see trends in people that are coming in for surgeries? Is it directly, whether it's obesity or just not taking care of themselves, or certain types of, is it mostly car wrecks or whatever it is? And then kind of a two-part question, how, I feel like we've already kind of talked about it, like there's that level of professionalism. Are you just constantly leaving there kind of impressed by just like the shape people are coming in, and then they're like, wow, that person didn't die, or they're actually made a speedy recovery?
It's well, to the first part, the trends. I mean, it's kind of widely documented that we are more obese than we've ever been.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
It is a big problem for surgeons, because when you're obese, it's harder. And I'm not a surgeon by any means or a doctor, but we know that it creates all kinds of complications for the surgeons and staff. Your healing is compromised. Everything is more challenging when you're morbidly obese.
Right.
We have a high patient population of folks who, for example, want to come in and get a total knee done because they have a bad knee. Well, orthopedic surgeons won't do your knee if you're morbidly obese or you're over a certain BMI. So then it just kind of spirals out of control. Now you have a patient who has a bad knee, they're morbidly obese, that can't get a knee replaced because the surgeons won't do it because they're too high risk, and now they're immobile, they can't move. So now they just get bigger and bigger. So
how do we fix that, in your opinion? Like,
you're talking to the wrong person.
I know.
But I think just awareness. I think diet, fitness, everything that we do
Right.
here, I think, is certainly, there's no silver bullet based on what I see.
There's really not.
Yeah,
It's hard work, right?
It
You
is.
gotta train your body and your mind.
Yeah.
So obviously obesity is a problem with a lot of those people. Do you see a lot of people that are maybe smokers and stuff like that?
Yeah,
some of
especially
that?
in Kentucky. I used to work in Lexington predominantly, but in Kentucky we have a lot of obese people. We have a lot of smokers, so it's just the way it is. So yeah, I mean those are very compromised patients when it comes to healing, and of course all the different cancers that come from that. And
But it seems like the health. I guess the second part of that question wasn't as precise. You feel like that we're increasing at a kind of increasing rate in the medical field with just everything, technology and knowledge.
I can tell you from our perspective, from working for a manufacturer who develops and designs products to do these procedures,
you would know.
We are, from that perspective, we have had to change our product designs to basically mitigate or to deal with obesity. So we have a big portfolio that I deal with is our stapling products that goes in a staple. So for if you're going in for a bariatric surgery and you're getting a sleeve gastrectomy where they're going to staple out, a big percentage of your stomach so that you can lose weight, the stomachs are thicker today than they were. The patients BMIs are off the charts compared to where they were when we first started doing some of these surgeries. So based on that, we've had to redevelop and redesign our devices to accommodate for that higher level of BMI. Reinforce the staplers so that they don't bend and break and things and have issues because they're stapling on anatomy that's thicker and tougher to deal with. So it's very common, especially in the bariatric world where people are going to get bariatric weight loss surgery. They're dealing with that, and from a manufacturing standpoint, we're having to redesign our products around some of these trends that we're seeing. So
I really wish people would wake up on that sense of eating healthier, stop smoking. Obviously, that's kind of what we're about here at the gym. So maybe we can transition a little bit out of that. And how did you find CrossFit? How did you find us? And
yeah, so I actually started doing CrossFit years ago when I lived in Cincinnati, and I was in the Hyde Park area, and I was just working out at the time. It was Urban Active. And, I lived in between two Urban Actives, so I would work out at both depending on whatever mood I was in. But at the time, I had heard about CrossFit from a friend, and there were no boxes at the time in the area. It was just the main site where you would go log in. They'd post the workout of the day, and I would go to my gym and do it there. And so that was kind of my first. I did it for a while. I loved it, but there was a few things like I never had a coach, and I would do what they called the official CrossFit warm up, which was I think consisted of.
It was like a workout.
It was like 10 pull-ups, 10 air squats, 10 GHD sit-ups, and then there was something else.
Back extensions.
Yeah.
I can't remember the whole thing.
And
it's
like
been a while.
4 rounds of it.
But yeah, if you were doing that and able to do that as prescribed, you had a good baseline, of fitness, and I think that's kind of what their intention was, to really drill fundamentals. On that warm up. But
yeah, I was doing that, and then I really liked it. But then, of course, there were lifts. Initially, it felt like CrossFit was things you can do in your basement. That's how it felt. A lot of pull-ups and and things like that. And then they started putting snatches in there and things that I've never done before in my life.
Sure.
So, and then doing those types of lifts at an Urban Active you kind of look like you stand out a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
definitely.
And then the other thing I started getting some elbow pains because I clearly wasn't doing things the right way, and
it's tough.
Yeah, so I stopped doing it for a while, and then I just kind of, when I moved down to Cincinnati, I built a home gym in my basement, was doing stuff there, and then just honestly, I've always worked out, I've never gone long lapses of not exercising, but I just got to a point where I knew I wasn't reaching that intensity level that I did when I was younger, and just wasn't getting a lot on my workouts. I remember the turning point for me once, this a couple years ago, I was working out downstairs in my basement. I was probably down there for an hour and a half. And I came upstairs, and I wasn't even sweating.
Oh, wow.
And my wife, who's a runner,
Yeah.
she's upstairs dealing with the kids and doing
Uh-huh.
her, and I'm down there just listening to music, and
Right.
she's like, "You need to break a sweat. What are you doing down there?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "What did I do?" I did a set of, incline press, and then I would go to my phone and text a friend, and then I'd come back and do another set, and then I'd go to my phone and click on E-Bombs World and see what the latest funny clip, So
Yeah.
just doing it just wasn't really getting a lot out of the workout. So then I just kind of made a decision, like I wanted to join a CrossFit gym, and I had a friend, Steve Chapman, who I was in a golf league with for a while, and I hadn't seen him in a while, and then I saw him, and he just looked different. Like he was just,
Steve's ripped.
He's ripped.
Yeah.
Everything about him looked ripped. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And he told me that he had joined here, I think about 6 months before that.
Yeah,
and,
that's probably about right.
And I said, man. And so he just was telling me what he was up to and where this place was. And so I came in here, and I remember the day I walked in, no one was, I think you were in the front, you were on the phone. I just kind of popped into the gym and looked around, and there was no one in there, but Scotty Johns was in there.
Oh, jeez.
And he was doing squat cleans, some crazy amount of weight, and I was like,
Yeah.
that guy looks pretty legit,
Right,
So
yeah.
and then you and I start talking, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, man. Steve, just that community building aspect, like Steve found us because he actually turned the power on in our new building. He works at Duke, and you don't meet too many individuals that can walk into the gym that can just do a strict muscle up, and that have humility like all over them.
Yeah.
Like you said, Steve is a golfer. Still want to play with him, by the way, so I can learn how to play better, because I know he's like a scratch golfer or what have you. But he's just an all-around great guy. So when we there's very few people that in the whole gym that I wouldn't want someone to walk in and interact with. But if there was a top percentage, Steve would be in that for sure, because he's just so just humble and welcoming and just an all-around great guy. But yeah, so then obviously you have a little bit of background, and Jared can speak to that too, I'm sure, if he was on the cast. That's actually where we met, was at the Urban Active right there in Hyde Park. And I was doing my heavy lifting, I was trying to get to the 350 bench and all these numbers that I had in my head, and deadlifting real heavy and getting yelled at for dropping the weights. And Jared was doing CrossFit, over there, and I didn't know it. And then, again, how I found it was I met a girl and introduced me to it, and then I started going to a gym and realized that my intensity was shit, So, but it really reinvigorated me in a lot of sense. Competitively, yeah, more eventually with myself than anything else, just challenging myself to do things that I never thought that I needed to do, like a muscle up or a handstand push up or double unders. It just introduced so many new things to me, and I think that in life, just in general, like new things are good, like especially new challenges. And I think CrossFit provides this platform for so many people. Even in now doing it 9 years, there's still things that I'm striving to do, and there's still new things that are out there waiting for me to do. And I think that's just helps in so many regards. So what's the experience been like? I know you just did your first competition, and second. Sorry, sorry, second competition. Just like that, it flies by, and it's here and it's gone. So yeah, maybe talk a little bit about that.
For me, it's been exactly what I was kind of looking for, from a standpoint that, as you just described, it really challenges me in ways that I know I would never challenge myself on my own. I'm older than you guys, so you get to a certain age where it's hard. It's hard to motivate yourself, and you have the other thing that I would say that I love about it is the efficiency of the workout. Like when I get in here, I'm committed to an hour or so working out, and I get more out of this than I know I would if I was doing other things.
100%.
Even like running and running and is good. Actually, my wife's a runner and I have friends that are runners, but like
don't give us hate mail, runner.
but to spend 60 minutes running versus what I can do here in less time, to me it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
And I've always been a big proponent of full body workouts. Just lifting upper body and lower body and big muscle groups, and obviously you get that here. The other thing that I really underestimated was just having coaches.
Wow. Yeah.
Having coaches around you. I mean, I'm not to kiss your all's butts, but like some of the best coaches I've ever had are in this gym, from any sport.
I'll let them know that.
But it's the truth. I mean, because I think for me, my technique's not very good, and on a lot of these lifts, and I'm constantly being reminded just little nuances to improve that make huge strides.
Oh, yeah.
I remember the day it took me 6 months before I can overhead squat the bar in this gym, and the day that I actually could do the bar, I ended up doing like 120 pounds.
Right.
So it was just like something clicked that day.
Yeah.
One of you guys, I think it may have been you or Chris, one of you guys.
It was probably me. No.
Said something and it just clicked, and I think that's, the progress you can make here, and with the support and the people around you, and not just the coaches, but the other gym mates and things. It's,
I love that. And I agree to, the 10th power or whatever you want to say, man. I share a story. I do all the fundamentals, as you know. Had a guy in here for day one today, and was honestly had a good baseline of fitness. We don't see a lot of people, honestly, that can come in here and knock out 10 push-ups. He was able to do that efficiently, and got midway through the workout, and he said, "Man, I'm so out of shape." And one of the reasons I like to do the fundamentals is I just really try to share with them my experience, because I think a lot of people look at the coaches like, maybe not as much myself, but some of myself, but Jared and Chris, like they're, Iron Man, like that can fly and around the gym because they are so fit, but that's not without struggle. That's not without humility and gratitude through getting this opportunity to be able to do what we do day in and day out. It's honestly a blessing in so many ways.
Yeah.
But to have the perspective of, hey man, we have been doing this for 9 years. And whenever I started, like I said, I was going to Urban Active and I was deadlifting, bench, squat. And, I had a 405 back squat. And then when I found CrossFit, I could not overhead squat the bar. So it was through, and that's what I was explaining to this gentleman that we had this morning that did follow through and sign up, which is great. Because it's great, not like, we got his money or whatever. It's great because this is going to be a first step to potentially a life-changing experience, to where he's got 2 younger kids and a wife and just took on a new job. And that's a recipe for stress, as you know.
Yeah.
So, one of the things this place definitely does is relieve some stress. So, I share that to, just say that the community here is amazing, as you know. But it's just, you're constantly striving, just like even in your profession now, I'm sure, and being a dad and a husband, and we haven't even talked about golf. It's definitely a game that you have to humble yourself, and not every shot's going to be perfect. So with CrossFit, it's, you have your good days and you have your bad days, and you have your movements you're good at, you have your movements you need to work on. But I would acknowledge you, man, and I love your competitiveness. And I think it was one of those things when you first started out, you were like a bullet out of a gun, and we had to rein you in a little bit. But we found, I think, a good rhythm with you now, to where you know when to hit the accelerator and when to maybe pump the brakes a little bit, and just realize that, hey, I gotta get a little more technical on some of these lifts and work on my mobility. And that's everyone. That's not just like, because you were just saying, I'm not that great at. No one is. No one is. Unless they're familiar with the lifts, they humble you. And like I said, it's a microcosm of life. Whether it's going to college or entering into parenthood or whatever it is, you don't always have all the answers, and this is definitely one of those things where if you can come in with an open mind and check your ego, it can really teach you a lot of life lessons, not just fitness. But what's maybe something right now that you're shooting for in life, or family, or fitness, a goal or a passion? I know it's kind of a deep way to go, but I think just to maybe you think about it, I'll ramble a little more. To state the obvious, it's important, right? It's important to have some type of North Star to shoot for.
Sure.
And I feel like you're definitely a guy that is constantly pushing yourself in all areas of life. So I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, I think, I kind of I would break that down a couple different ways, but I think, first and foremost, I just want to be the best provider for my family I can be. I have 3 amazing young kids and an awesome wife, and she's an amazing mother to the kids, and I just want to make sure that I'm providing everything that I can to make sure that they're doing the things that they want to do, and that they're happy and safe and all those things. So that's how I identify myself first and foremost, as a provider for my family. And I one of the things, kind of tying it back to CrossFit, is that I want to be energetic when I'm around them. I want to have the energy to get up. I mean, I got a 2-year-old kid. I'm 42 years old. This kid's going to be 18, a senior in high school. I'll be 58 years old. So I think about that. Like, I want to be able to, put that kid in check if I physically have to when he's a senior in high school. And I don't know if I'll be able to, but
I'm so glad you just said that, by the way.
But so those things. I mean, that's a big part of why I've kind of transitioned into this part of my life with fitness and CrossFit. Is I just want to be healthy. I want to be energetic, and I do feel like a lot of ways this has been like a fountain of youth for me in some ways. But so that perspective, and then career. I just want to like what I do, continue liking what I do, and provide for my family. It's really as simple as that.
Yeah, I love it. So that's good, and I love that you intertwined back to fitness, because I feel like so many people, the number one excuse we definitely hear is I don't have time to do, and then usually my blunt response is you don't have time not to do this.
Yeah.
Because and I honestly, like I said, I do our day one. You can call me sales department or whatever, but this stuff sells itself. And if after our first day experience, if people decide they don't like it, I want to point them in a direction of some type of physical outlet that they can engage with. So whether that's going down to Joe Daniels and swinging kettlebells, or doing yoga, or running, or whatever it is, because without a doubt, and I know you can preach to this, we all need something physical in our life to get our heart rate up a little bit, to eliminate a little bit of stress, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be this, super intense CrossFit workout, right? Which I think is overblown, because we are not necessarily destroying our bodies every day here, whatever people think. We're actually very scientific with our approach, and the results kind of speak for themselves. But yeah, man, I think
I'd make 2 comments to that. First of all, about the time thing, I kind of felt the same way. And that's the reason why I built a home gym in my house, because I felt, I can always sneak a workout in.
Right.
And when I started coming here, if you remember, my plan was to do the 4:30s and 3:30 classes, or maybe even later. But I decided to start doing the 5:30 classes, because I felt like that was time that I could be spending with my family, or even
5:30
working.
a.m. You're saying.
Yeah, so I moved to 5:30 a.m. class because my family's still sleeping, and so there are. Anyone that says they don't have the time, I'd just say just get up an hour earlier, or an hour and a half earlier than you normally do, and do it. And it does take a time to transition. It's not easy working out in the morning, but it for me, that's been life changing for me, because I'm a morning person, but I've never liked working out in the morning. Now I really enjoy it, and it starts my day off right. I feel great. And, and it's amazing. The other thing on the health side of it, when I started coming here, I had like really bad back pain. Like I would stand up in cases, and And you guys start working with me immediately on that, and within 2 months, I have not had any back pain.
Wow.
So for folks who are intimidated about coming and do CrossFit workouts, I always tell them, like, no, you need CrossFit to get to prevent you from hurting yourself doing other workouts, because you're working the whole body, the programming. You guys think everything through, and you're not just working certain muscle groups all the time repetitively. You're working everything, and then there's the warm-ups, the cool-downs, the stretching, all the things that I know I wasn't doing.
Right.
And some of my other friends who don't do CrossFit, who work out a lot, they don't do those things either. So, that's my advertisement for it. But I'm pretty passionate about it. I've talked to a lot of people about it. Especially, I think there's an intimidation for people who are my age.
Right.
Again, I'm over 40 years old, so people think, well, I can't do that. I can't do those lifts. Well, you don't have to be able to do everything. You just listen to your coaches, trust the process, and you'll be happy you did it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's definitely a trust factor, and giving us, the final stamp of, I am going to listen to these guys. And a lot of times it's, and you can obviously speak to this too. It's like we're usually telling people take weight off as opposed to put it on. I remember years ago it was always like, it's going to make me bulky or, whatever, and they're just going to make me lift too much weight. And it's, anyway, it's not like that. It's not, there's no CrossFit, boogeyman under the bed or whatever you want to say, that's going to hurt you or lurking in the shadows. But,
the other thing I'll add to it from a health standpoint, and just mentally, my wife, she might not like me saying this, but she is a totally different person after she works out.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she goes for a run. It's like she comes back and the house can be on fire and she's okay. I am the same way. Like if I miss a day or two, I start to get anxious, and you just got to get it out of you in some way. And I think that mentally, we're better parents when we're around our kids. When we've blown off some steam.
Absolutely.
We're more focused at work, or we're more focused and more attentive with our kids. So I can go on and on about it, I do think that
it's very, very, very important.
Yeah.
And when I say that, again, it's not just the program we have here. Physical engagement, like I said, hey, my wife's a runner. My wife doesn't come to the gym, to do CrossFit, but I still give her little programs to do at her gym. And she does yoga with us here that we have now. And she likes to run. So she's very active. She doesn't necessarily do CrossFit.
No, I can't do yoga.
Yeah, that's
I can't do it. I can't. I need something where I can truly, where I'm moving so fast or lifting weights where I don't have time to think.
It's tough.
Yoga is tough for me to really relax. I probably need it, but
everyone needs it. Yeah, to a certain degree. Yeah, it's different for sure. Yeah. It's a different mindset.
My wife does hot yoga. She loves it.
Yeah, I did one of those 30-day Groupons of Bikram yoga. It was like an hour and 15 minutes. And I want to say it's like over 100 degrees in the room. And the first day, I'm like CrossFit, I got this. I got my ass handed to me. I thought I was going to puke the first day. And I realized that not only do I need to bring a mat, but I need to bring a towel. And I need to bring not just a bottle of water, but like a thermos or like ice, because it gets so hot. Like day one, it was like the worst thing you can imagine. I am completely drenched in sweat. I am overheating to the point where like I want out of the room, and they always encourage you to just, it's always in a calming voice, and the little light music in the background. They're like, if you're feeling overwhelmed, just go to the back of your mat and hold child's pose. I'm like, I'm about to vomit. Like, I need out of this 110 degree room. But anyway, I ended up sticking with it. I only did it a couple days a week, so total probably 8 to 10 times. And I got, obviously I saw improvement, but I really attribute the mental gains that I got through just pushing through CrossFit workouts to where I could actually stay in that room and push, and it's kind of callous my mind to be able to endure more pain. So it's on, I can, and Jared talks about this a lot on this. It's retrained my mind to where now we moved into a house in December, got a small kind of yard to cut, but I got a 70-degree hill in my backyard. And I mean, this thing is a workout. It's probably about 20 yards across by let's just say 20 yards by 20 yards. Nice little chunk, but 70 degrees, and it's a little lumpy. I don't know if I could have done this, on the hottest day of the year several years ago. And my neighbor will look at me, and he just lets his go because there's no one behind us. And he's like, "Why do you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I guess I just look at it as a challenge, and I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be able to throw the spikes on, and I got to go side to side on it, and get it done." It's kind of ridiculous, and some people might be like, "Well, why would you do that? There's no one back there." But for me, it's almost like a workout. It's just like, you know what? I can physically do this, so I'm going to do this. Will I do this the rest of my life if I live here? Maybe not, but. I kind of take pride in that sense, and there's almost like little things that show up daily in life that you probably don't even realize. People don't realize that, hey, with a little more mental toughness or physical fitness, you might look at it a little bit differently. But
yeah,
I digress again. Look, man, I want to definitely acknowledge you before we finish this thing up as being someone that we love, obviously, having here in our community, and you inviting your brother in, and I know you constantly are inviting people to come check us out, which we obviously appreciate as a small business. But you're absolutely a very fit dude, regardless of your age, very strong. I can tell that you're not afraid to push yourself day in and day out, and but you also have such a good kind of heart to you, man, where you've actually invited me to golf with you, and I really appreciate that on a personal level. It's been a lot of fun to get to know you, and thank you for coming on. We finish out every show with what is your definition of success?
Of success?
Yeah, so we used to do fitness, if you've listened to
some of that. You're throwing a curveball at me now.
I know.
So you were a pitcher, apparently.
Yeah,
I had my fitness definition all worked out in my head.
Well, you can share that, and you can tie it into success.
Success. All right, now I got to think about that one.
It's heavy.
It is heavy. The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of success is happiness. And just, whatever you are actually, whatever makes you the most happy, that would be what I would probably focus on in life in order to, because if you're not happy, it doesn't matter how much money you have or, the other things, the material things that most people strive for in life, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind would be finding an inner peace and finding happiness would be my true definition of success. Now my boss at work might say something different, but right. That would be that's my personal definition.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. Thanks again for coming on, and thank you for listening to Triumph Every Day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, iTunes. Give us a review, like it, 5-star review. Find us on triumphstrength.net, Instagram @triumphstrength. Thanks again. Have a great day.